What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. The other team I wanted to look at here is the Golden State Warriors, because the Golden State Warriors kind of felt like the clubhouse favorite for Siakam. At least that's what it seemed like a couple of weeks ago. And now he's off the table, right? And I don't think they can afford Lauri Markkanen. And Jeremy Grant, I'm not even sure if he's going to be available. I'm not even sure if he wants to go play for a winning team. I'm not even sure he wants to leave Portland under any circumstances. So I'm not really sure what the deal is there. And so the options are getting loose. But at the end of the day, like what I look at with Golden State, we've talked about this issue before, but to me, you're trying to make one last run at this thing with Steph and Draymond as your brackets at the 1 and 5. I think Klay at the 2 is fine as long as your 3 and 4 are really good basketball players. And so I was actually looking at this today, and I wonder, because there's a specific guy that I have my eye on here from the Brooklyn Nets. What I would do is I'd call Brooklyn, and I'd offer them Andrew Wiggins, and I'd offer them Jonathan Kuminga, and I'd offer them Moses Moody, and I'd offer them draft compensation, and I'd ask for Mikal Bridges and Dorian Finney-Smith. And I know that we haven't really heard much about Mikal Bridges being available, but he's now in his late 20s. And the Brooklyn Nets thing has been a pretty clear, description of the fact that Mikal Bridges is not going to be like a foundational franchise altering type of talent. He's a really, really, really good role player who makes a lot of money, because really, really good role players cost a lot of money. Jonathan Kuminga has the potential to be a franchise-altering player, right? And certainly has a higher ceiling than that's not to say he will reach that ceiling, but certainly has a higher ceiling than what Mikal Bridges has been able to reach here heading into his late 20s. This is a guy that, if you've got those two guys, that's two guys that can both defend on the perimeter at a really high level, that can both shoot the basketball. Mikal Bridges provides some legitimate second side creation. He's not an excellent passer, but he's a good pull-up jump shooter. He's a guy that can score when you put him on an island a little bit. Now we're looking at a lineup with, you're foregoing your future, right? You're moving on from Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga. That's obviously a significant loss. I think the team is probably done with Andrew Wiggins at this point, with everything that's gone down since he left the team last year. He'd be basically functioning as salary filler in that situation. If you're Brooklyn, you're getting a legitimate potential future all-star in Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins, who's a starting level NBA wing, right? So you're turning two wings into two wings, except for one that you don't really have much use for, but Jonathan Kuminga, who has legitimate long-term potential. It's just more of a forward-thinking move in terms of Brooklyn's perspective. Then I'm working out there with Steph and Klay, with two excellent perimeter defenders, an additional shot creator in Mikal Bridges, slots Klay Thompson on easier, achievable perimeter defense roles, and Draymond Green anchoring things in the front court. That to me is an example of a type of deal that I would make. But I think the Warriors need to be aggressive. I think they need to make something significant change here. One of the nice things about that specific deal too is it keeps Chris Paul in the fold, which allows you to kind of maintain your offensive organization and just kind of steadiness in those non-Steph minutes when he gets back from his injury, obviously. But yeah, that's an example of a move that I'd be looking for, but the options are running out. OG's off the board. Pascal Siakam's off the board. Options are running out. The Warriors got to find something. Siakam is going to be a massive, massive upgrade for this team. The entire physical profile of the team changes with this move. I would presume they might stay with Buddy Hield. It could be Ben Mathurin, but if it's Halliburton and it ends up being something along the lines of like a Aaron Nesmith, Siakam, Turner front line, that just becomes way more physically imposing than what we've seen elsewhere this season, right? So like it just adds a new dynamic to the defensive physicality of the team. By the way, he's a great rebounder too. Averaged 8 rebounds a game over the last 5 years, Pascal Siakam. And the Pacers are a bottom 5 defensive rebounding team this year. Siakam's also a very good offensive rebounder, so that'll help them on that end of the floor as well. But bottom line is like fundamentally increases your physical profile on both ends of the floor. improves your defensive rebounding, improves your rim protection and overall defensive capability, gives you an additional shot creator that can add some variety to what you do offensively, not to mention just making Tyrese Halliburton's job easier. And then in off-ball situations, he is a seamless fit with Tyrese Halliburton. Absolutely love the move. Didn't really have to give up anything of real consequence. Round of applause to the Pacers. Really, really well done. Wouldn't be surprised if they're not done either. Wouldn't be surprised if they look to shore up that 2 or that 3 spot before the deadline as well, although salary matching is a little tough there, so we'll see how that goes. On the Raptors front, they already have RJ Barrett and Gary Trent Jr., who both, like RJ Barrett can play the 3, can play the 2, but to me, from a size perspective, and he's actually a pretty good point of attack defender, I look at him more as a 2. Gary Trent Jr. is a decent point of attack defender, who's a pretty solid offensive player as well, so different archetype. Bruce Brown, obviously different than both of them, but very good point of attack defender, a guy that can provide some rim pressure in transition, decent ball handler, really versatile kind of Swiss Army knife type of player. But they all kind of play that 2-3 hybrid type of spot, right? And so, although Gary Trent Jr. is more of a 2. So the question is like at that point, do you want to have, 2 of those guys making 20 plus million? You know what I mean? And especially if you don't plan on playing both of them together. Bruce is having a little bit of a down shooting year, and so is RJ Barrett. So, although he's been shooting really well with the Raptors, RJ Barrett's been playing so well with the Raptors that they may kind of prioritize him. But point being, it might be that Bruce Brown is available now at the deadline in a way that he might not have been otherwise. If he was just on the Pacers, not sure the Pacers would have got rid of him, but they had to get rid of him to get Pascal Siakam. The Raptors might have more need for whatever they could get back from Bruce Brown than Bruce Brown himself. I personally, as someone who roots for the Lakers, would absolutely love to have Bruce Brown. D'Angelo Russell is a redundancy on the Lakers, but he's actually a good basketball player. He makes an affordable salary, makes less than $20 million a year. Excellent passer, excellent off-ball shooter. He's a guy that could actually kind of provide some connectivity and leadership for that Raptors team. I think D'Lo is very much a middle of the ground asset. Like he's a guy that like some teams would view as a negative asset and some teams would view as a positive asset, but only slightly so in either direction. And no one would really complain if he was in the trade if they were getting something else that's more of like the sweetener, right? So like, what if the Lakers were to give him like, D'Angelo Russell and Jalen Hood-Schifino and Maxwell Lewis? That's like literally a first-round pick from last year who hasn't been able to play for the Lakers, right? And then Maxwell Lewis, an interesting little undrafted guy, although I think he might have been a second-round pick if I remember correctly. And then D'Lo, a veteran that could help, and maybe they throw in some second-round picks or something like that. Or maybe if it push comes to shove and the Lakers really want him, they could throw in a first-round pick because they have one that they could trade. But Bruce Brown to me is a guy that like is a really useful playoff weapon. Specifically, the reason why I'd be so excited with him on the Lakers is he would just add an entire physical element to this team that they haven't had since Alex Caruso was on the roster. You can imagine a lineup that has an engaged LeBron James in his playoff mode with Anthony Davis and Bruce Brown on the floor just being so much more physically imposing than some of these lineups that we've seen from the Lakers this year. Although his shooting has been a little bit of an issue, which I obviously would be worried about a little bit for the Lakers' sake. But he did make a lot of threes in the postseason last year. But Lakers aren't the only team. There are a bunch of other teams that could potentially look at Bruce Brown as an option. He's going to be a little bit tough to match salaries and to afford, especially if the Raptors want draft compensation. So it'll be interesting to see if any team gets in on that race. But he's a guy I'd keep an eye on.